Warning, the following episode contains spoilers for LEGO Masters Season 2, Episode 5. You have been warned. Hello, this is Justin with Between the Studs, Episode 28.
That's a
we
lot.
made it.
Wow.
28. That was, for whatever reason, the number I really wanted to get to.
27 is better, in my opinion.
It's a great number.
I'm done after this.
Congratulations, Justin.
Welcome. This is the review of LEGO Masters Season 2, Episode 5, right?
Yes.
We have a plethora of people. We have Joe, Mark, Chris, and myself to talk about what we thought of the episode. So, let's start it off. Initial thoughts before we get into the nitty-gritty.
Well, I haven't seen it yet. Did Mark stay on?
No, he didn't. That was...
We did tolerably well.
It was okay.
No, of course, he won the golden brick. First of all, it must have been an amazing feeling to get that. And just to see it again, relive it in a sense. Because, of course, you were there, but now you've seen it edited. And what was it like watching it again?
It was really exciting. I was literally getting like a little bit of a trembling excitement feeling when watching it. Steven, I think, was more excited at the time. Like, he was just pumped to be building floating islands. It's his favorite thing to build. At the same time, I think I was a little more excited watching it again for some reason. It just was awesome.
I can't believe you guys didn't build a castle. You gotta be safe. We've got to see a castle at some point.
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, actually, the judges were really like, you got to do something different. And they know we build castles. So we build a castle, it's not different.
You have done different stuff, though.
Yeah.
I thought every episode you've done something different.
It's true.
Was that a critique they did give you on this build? Do something different?
They said, you guys need to bring it to the next level. You guys need to do something wild and colorful and something you've never done before. It's very unusual critique, but that's what they gave us because they knew that we could build quite well. And they knew that we had kind of a niche. We love castles. We love landscapes.
Yeah.
Do something different. And so that was our main criticism. They didn't show any of that, of course. But
So you did a cottage in a landscape.
yeah, exactly. Around unusual-looking structures instead of a castle.
I think when they saw your build all finished, at least the impression I got is that the technicality of it is what blew them away. There were things that, you know when you're really good at something and then you see someone else do something that's even better, and it's kind of like the general public can't even realize how good that is. To make a simile to something totally different, they call Jay-Z the rapper's rapper, because if you listen to Jay-Z, most people are like, yeah, that's good, but to rappers, they're like, how does he do that? Because they know how hard that is. And I felt like it was the same thing with the Brickmasters when they saw that. That an average person may be like, oh, that's a pretty thing. Oh, look how he did the leaves. That's neat. But when you're an actual builder, they're like, oh my goodness, the technique. And I felt like that's what really put you guys over the edge.
Freaked Amy out. Like, she was so excited. I don't think she'd been that excited the whole season.
Well, there was a
She
lot of color.
So happy.
Yeah, a lot of color.
And
No
not
tan.
very much tan.
No tan. I think there's literally no tan in the build. So that was the most important thing. The skin on the gnomes was tan.
I think she'll allow it.
The thing that I think set our build apart from the other ones and what ended up giving us the win was the fact that we were very, very intentional with the design. Jamie was won over by the fact that our composition was pretty much flawless for the challenge. And what I mean by that is you could stand anywhere. You could lay underneath it. You could stand directly above it. You could stand up far away. You could stand up close, and it looks good. It doesn't matter where it is. There's no front. There's no back. There's no place that has the story, and you can't see it from this one side. No, every single side you can see multiple things going on. A butterfly, a gnome. Most of them are in view at all times, and that's kind of hard to do with any other structure. The bugs in the cave on the other island, the cave is only on one side, and then like the farmer's only on one side. There's only one farmer, and then the whale, as awesome as it is, it doesn't look terrific from the back. Or underneath or above, it's a little bit blocky. So it's like ours was purely 360, if not more than that, because he could see it from anywhere. Like Jamie actually literally stooped below it and is like, it looks awesome from here too.
Yeah.
That was the second thing I was going to mention, because yours was the most 3D in all directions.
For sure.
And of course, we didn't get to see from underneath, but just the glimpses I saw, I was like, I bet that's flawless. If I laid under it, I bet it would still look like a piece of art. And I think that, in my opinion, that was the second thing that made you guys the top. So
Yeah.
let me congratulate you. That is pretty awesome.
You did all right.
What was it like to hold the golden brick and walk over there, and your brother actually touched it first? Did he let you touch it?
So, yeah. Actually, so what's funny is I let Steven grab it out of Will's hand, but I held it for the rest of the time that we had it. So I
why
put
did
it in
you
my
hold it?
pocket.
Yeah,
So,
you
because
pulled
I'm
the-
the older brother, I take care of the business.
Big brother card.
Yeah.
He pulled the big
He
brother.
had the moment of glory, and I just
Yeah.
took care of the practical nature of keeping it in the pocket.
You just
so.
tell him, you go get it and bring it to him.
Yeah, I'm like, grab it, Steven. He grabbed it. I'm like, thanks.
And you told me that they actually let you hold the real thing, right?
Yes.
It's not like a prop thing that you then immediately give back. You actually get to keep it.
For that duration of that end of that show, and while we're filming the next episode that we're in, it's in my pocket when we're on set and while we're filming. We do give it back at the end of the day, even if we're not turning it in.
They put it back in that secret box.
One of the producers hangs on it. I don't know. So, but probably goes in the bottom.
Yeah. Now, this is a cheesy question, but it doesn't really shine like that. They edit that in post, right?
They add a little glow in post.
okay.
It is
Just
very
a
shiny,
little.
though.
Okay.
It's completely chromed.
Okay.
So it's almost like a mirror, a gold mirror finish on it.
Still cool.
It's very
right.
cool. I've never really seen a brick like that except for the silver chromed one.
Yeah, I
which
got
are
the silver one in my pocket.
almost as cool. So.
One of those pockets.
We've teased you with the silver one before.
Now, that is genuine Lego. That one is,
Yes.
right?
That came in sets, yeah.
Whereas the gold one, there's no such piece.
As far as I know, there's not an equivalent that officially came in a set.
There
You could
are-
probably make your own.
Yeah, their art department made that.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you tell? Was it on a tan brick or what
It
was
was on a
underneath?
tan 2x4 brick.
Okay.
So it was a normal Lego brick, but it had been customized to perfection.
So
Very similar to this one because this one's gray.
Yeah.
So,
If gold gives you immunity, what does silver give you?
Cheese,
extra
cheese.
Gatorade?
It's all the cheese.
Jeez.
Cheese? Okay,
Yes.
Joe says cheese.
So backing up to the beginning of the episode, I always like to get your perspective. They walk you guys out, and I felt like this bit, I don't know why, this was funnier to me. It was more entertaining.
You
the
like this
opening
one?
bit. It was just, I
It
was
was
smiling the whole
hilarious.
time. It's like, oh, Will.
Mustache.
You card.
Now, when I was watching this, I was having a great time because Will was acting with himself, with a recording of himself in the studio in real time. And that was impressive. He
That's
was
what
doing
I
a
was
great
thinking,
job.
yeah.
Every line was working, and he was like acting with, I'm like, that's actually considerable acting skill right
Yeah.
there. And you could see in the cuts that were there, I was just like, what? I
Yeah.
was having a great time. So
I was thinking that too, that like he obviously practiced to get the timing down.
Yeah.
it was more impressive there because they actually had a longer conversation. They only used parts of it.
Really?
And so it was like, it was very impressive. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Well, I guess the best scene partner is yourself.
Yeah, I know, right? Well,
guess.
in Will's case, yes.
So when they brought you out and they had that brick drop and you saw it, what was going through your head at first?
So we were just like, well, there's extra motivation to do well for this challenge. Steven and I were just, our goal from the start was do well, always be in contention for the top spot. Do we have to win? No. We only have to win at the end. That was our mindset. We're doing well. We got a good plan. We just got to fulfill it. It was exciting, but it didn't necessarily change our plans. It was just kind of like, there's a gold brick too. Hope we do well. And we were feeling pretty good based on what was going on around us. 'Cause,
Okay.
The other builds were looking good, but it's a challenging thing to hang a huge build off of a wire. So.
Had you ever done anything close to that before?
Some stuff. I had done some hanging mocks before on smaller scale than that. I've never really gone out of my way to do that, although we had floated that idea around, no pun intended, that our display for Brick World in 2018 would be fully suspended. It would have like this big lattice above it and everything would be hanging. But we decided at the last minute that we couldn't just build the lattice in time. We just had to build it on the table instead. So we had kind of planned doing that stuff before. So it wasn't like out of the question. It wasn't unusual to me to hang something. Although doing something big and impressive in that short time frame and that physical challenge is a really tall order.
Was it really hard to get it to balance?
That wasn't a problem at all for us just because of the way we designed our build.
Okay.
But I imagine it was a big challenge for people like Zach and Wayne or even I know Dave and Richard had a Jack and the Beanstalk they were having a little trouble with early on. It could quickly become a challenge if you didn't have a very balanced design. So, yeah.
How long did it take for the challenge to be going that they actually showed the golden brick come out?
It was probably about an hour or two in.
Okay.
They didn't show it right away.
Yeah.
As far as I remember.
it was
Because you could
accurate.
tell that you had some building.
It was, the editing was actually quite on the line of how things actually
Good.
played
Okay.
out. Some episodes they changed it up a little
Yeah.
bit. This one was pretty much just as is. They didn't have any reason to edit it. So.
Was that a huge shock when they brought that out?
We were we were thinking about it for episode 4 where the hats were like, maybe they'll bring the golden brick because it had just been used the last episode. And so we're like, maybe they use this. And so, nope, no golden brick. And so we're like, maybe it'll come out here. Maybe it'll be next episode. We didn't know if they said it would probably come back in, but they obviously didn't give us any clue. They wanted to be a surprise. So it was kind of like we were hoping it would show up. But at the same time, it didn't change our plan to do well.
I bet that's why they did it like partly in, because they didn't want you to be like, oh, golden brick time, now let's build harder. It's like, oh, they're starting now, let's drop it on them.
Yeah.
So it
Extra
gives you more,
challenge, extra
excitement,
stress.
Yeah.
The Technic brick was yellow, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was there a reason they chose yellow?
It's kind of like Lego when they have the internal structures of a build. It doesn't have to be the same color as the outside. You know, it's just whatever color they have. I think yellow is kind of a stronger color piece.
That's it. That's probably it.
Yeah.
That and you can see it on camera maybe.
That's what I was thinking.
Because it literally just dawned on me while we were sitting here, and you could probably see the recognition on my face that they asked us, Lego Masters called us and asked us for 12 yellow Technic bricks.
Oh, you're right.
Really?
Do you remember that?
Yes.
And I was just, it's one of those things you just get.
It's like,
I mean,
okay.
they got a lot of pieces from
They
us,
did.
but this was specifically, I don't know, 20, 12.
Yeah, it wasn't
I
a lot.
I don't know,
It wasn't
but
very many.
I was just, thinking in my head, oh, okay, that's odd.
That makes
you
sense.
know, but there it
why.
is. Yeah,
Wow.
isn't that
That's probably what it was.
funny? Had to
So
have been,
probably
yeah.
the same bricks that came from this
Yeah,
store were
most
used
likely.
on the show. So.
They did
Cool.
use those a lot.
How long did it take you guys to come up with your idea before you started?
They just started discussing the rules for the challenge. I'm like, Steven, how do we make a floating island? He's like, are you sure? It's going to be a cliche. And I'm like, it's a cliche that you're good at.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a floating island. He's like, oh, thanks, bro.
Oh.
And then, of course, it's a cliche. So Caleb and Jacob, in the same vein, immediately thought of the same thing and didn't realize that we were building the same thing until later. But yeah, it was literally the first thing that popped into our heads, and for good reason. Steven is really well known for building this kind of upside down landscape shape.
You were saying that you've seen them build this before when it's suspended from the bottom. Right?
Yes.
At
Yeah.
cons, you've
Yeah.
seen them build. So it was kind of natural
Chicago,
to just do the same thing, just change the internal structure slightly.
Yeah, the concept is the same as far as how aesthetically it should look. Going to conventions, that has a 360 appearance in many cases. And in the case of our floating islands build, it was actually a horseshoe shape for the build. So you could see every build from all around, no matter where you were standing. So it's like that kind of 3D concept was really key as far as the design. The build itself, instead of being supported from underneath, it was more like building a lattice of going down and just all sorts of, it was like a box going down, a rectangle. And it just kind of hung from itself, and then we just attached the panels of rock to the sides. And that also goes into the technique of the rock. Kind of set us apart from the other islands is they were just built bricks. I think they were actually upside down, but built like a volcano, upside down volcano. Ours was actually chunks of rock snapped on in the shape of a kind of like a spike.
Yeah.
So our technique is more complex and stronger.
You guys told me that you typically do strength through plates, whereas this you had to use the technique. You were forced to because that's what
Starting
you had
brick.
to start with.
Yeah.
So what was the internal structure? How did you make it from Technic to your normal building style?
Yeah. So we were using Technic, but I immediately went from the Technic bricks going this way with the studs up to the Technic bricks on their sides with the studs going out, and in both directions. And then I would switch it, rotate it that way because it was a box,
Yeah.
and I'd have them going in that direction. And then from there, we would also have headlight bricks, every 5 bricks mixed in all that. So it was a very complex studs out, but it has a very strong core of Technic. So it could have held a lot more weight. When we went with this plan, they were like, go big, go 360. And we're like, we're absolutely not going big because that would be throwing away our best asset, which is details and our skill with techniques. So if we went to go build a sea cucumber that was as big as their whale, it wouldn't have made a difference because it would have just immediately brought us on the less detailed volume.
Or a turtle with its guts hanging out.
Yeah. So we were like, we're not going to fall for the bait of going too big. We're just going to build something that's really nice and just stick with that.
That's interesting that you said that, because I know in the past you said, listen to the judges, do what they say. But in this instance, you listened to your own instincts and said, no, everyone's going big. We're going to do this. And it's finding that balance of they're the ones judging you. Listen to what they say. No, this is what we're good at. From here on, whenever I think gnomes battling butterflies, I'll think of you. And I had no idea you were so hardcore.
Yep.
So, who came up with the story of gnomes versus butterflies?
Okay, so we're making the island, and we have to do something on the island. We were thinking probably trees. It's pretty clear that Caleb and Jacob are making waterfalls, so we'll stray away from water effects. And that's kind of a cliche of floating islands as well. So we are like trees and what else? Some sort of people or beings on this island. And I'm like, what about gnomes? And Steven's like, gnomes are kind of dumb. Let's do fairies. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's very different. We've absolutely never made fairies before, right?
Surprised.
I'm wearing a Viking t-shirt. Anyway, we're like, yeah, fairies, yeah. And then so Will came over before we had started working on the fairies. We're still working on the island. And he's like, oh, you're building fairies? And we're like, yeah, we're going to do fairies. Isn't that crazy? He's like, well, Natalie and Michelle are making a fairy in their build. And I'm like, what? And so we were like, okay, we'll do bugs, like Bugs Life. Kind of like we'll have like an ant person, we'll have a butterfly person, we'll have this person. And so they're all living in harmony, they're bug people. And then we figured out Caleb and Jacob have bugs as a crucial part of their story for their build too. They're all like wasps attacking the farmer. So I'm like, so he actually came over and said, hey, I heard you guys are building bugs. And we're like, yeah. He's like, we're doing bugs. And I'm like, and that was off camera, but it was so funny. Steven's like, what are we going to do? I'm like, we're doing gnomes. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, it's the only thing that hasn't been built yet. So we went for gnomes, and it turned out great. Steven made some amazing gnomes.
So who came up with the idea of gnomes versus butterflies, though?
We wanted to add some sort of tension, and their bugs were very wasp-like. They didn't call them wasps, but they were very much that kind of anatomy. We were like, butterflies are cool, they're big, they're lightweight, and they add a lot of color. So we decided to add butterflies. The story is they at one point weren't getting along, but now they get along just fine, and the butterflies help the gnomes get around, because otherwise they'd be stuck on their own islands.
You guys, I assume from the outset, decided no minifigs. We're brick built.
That's part of the plan for the whole show, is to like really avoid easy things like minifigures or prefab large pieces. We almost saw it as a crutch. Using minifigures is easy. It adds a quick character. It's 3 pieces. Boom, you're done. And so we're like, we're going to do something that's a little next level. Tyler Kleitz did a good example of like, he basically didn't use any minifigures in the scene. He always made cool brick-built characters. Ryan and Lauren, they built these awesome characters for each of their builds. And so it's like, we're going to try to really up the game a little bit by not using minifigures. Even if we're doing something that scale, we're going to make our own, because Steven's good at it. I mean, might as well use that advantage. Yeah.
And you guys decided that before you knew you were on the show.
Yeah.
You were like, you turned to each other, we're not doing minifigs.
Episode 1, we're like, no minifigs.
That's what happened. They knew what they wanted to build, and they couldn't decide between the gnomes or the elves. And Mark said no minifigures, and Steven thought he said no minifigures. And Steven was like, yeah, Mark, you're right. Let's do no minifigures.
Oh,
so then he built his own no minifigures.
That's exactly how it happened.
Now I know why their minifig fell down in episode 2. No minifig.
You gotta get rid of him. The one figure they use falls down.
They were like, nope, not him.
So you
We have no trust in minifigures at this point. So yeah.
This design, so we have recreations here.
It's very similar. It's actually fundamentally different in several ways, but it's very similar. So.
And that's something he's built before, so he just whipped these up.
He actually had never built a human-like character at this scale before, but he's built many different types of creatures before. So like elephants or dragons or other very complex builds, relatively small, but this kind of format was first made for the Viking ship in episode 1 when the sea serpent was chasing it. This is a kind of a continuation of that. They're a little bit smaller than the Vikings were, because gnomes aren't as big as Vikings.
He's been having fun since then, and he built the shroomkin,
which is awesome.
Which
I love that one.
was not in the episode, but kind of goes along with gnomes. They live in harmony, right?
They're probably friends. Yeah, I hope so.
I asked Steven to come up with a story behind the shroomkin. What is the relationship? And he sent me a very detailed storyline that says that even though they both have very advanced cultures, they get on, and separate, distinct cultures, they get along very well because of trade. The shroomkins have access to truffles, which the gnomes like to eat. So they trade and stuff.
They're not eating, like, the truffles aren't alive, are they? Because, I mean, he's alive.
Truffles,
it would almost be like a slave trade of
edible slave trade.
Well, I was wondering if the relationship was the gnomes eat the shroomkins.
Yep.
I don't know. Look at that shroomkin. He's pretty big.
Yeah,
he probably eats the gnomes.
He looks a little magical too. He's got a
Yeah.
staff
Yeah.
and everything.
I love the color.
I wouldn't necessarily pick a fight with somebody who's bigger than me
No.
and a huge
Yeah.
head.
Yeah.
No, but he is. The gnomes also like the shroomkins because they're just fun guys.
Mm-hmm.
They look like it.
They're personable, right?
Yeah, fun guys.
I thought you were making
That's 2 slaps so far. Keep it.
Anyhow, we've got these buildable figures here, and we are starting to sell them. Got the elder gnome that has gone fishing because he's retired. Then we've got the farmer gnome here, which has a shovel in his hand because he does farming work.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got the carpenter gnome who has a hammer.
He builds
I'm
houses.
assuming he builds
No,
houses.
He just knocks
And
wood.
then we've got the shroomkin.
Yep.
And these are all available on our website for sale. www.atlbrick.com.
Is he a shroomkin mage?
I think his original title was a traveler. That's where
Yes,
he's got that coat.
actually, it says that on the box.
Shroomkin
It
Yeah.
says
Okay.
Shroomkin Traveler. Yeah.
Maybe we'll get some other shroomkins in the future. That
I
would
think
be
we should.
If
a
he
good
sells
line.
well, you could see more shroomkins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shroomkin mage could be one of those.
That'd be pretty cool.
And is this a half of a Lowell sphere?
It's about half of a Lowell sphere, and it's actually harder to do half a sphere than a full sphere.
Really?
So it's a pretty parts intensive little chunk of Lego right
Yeah.
there.
Okay. And the prices are $24.99 for the
And then
All the
gnomes.
All the
and
gnomes.
then 39 for the shroomkin because he uses a lot more pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's actually, if you feel him, he's like 3 times.
Yeah, he is
Yeah.
much heavier.
I don't know how many pieces are in there, but it's actually like at least 100 or more.
It was
200.
over.
I mean,
Wow.
you just
It was
look
over
at the difference between
The volume,
the
yeah.
back there. You got that little bit, and then a ton more right there.
So that's actually like not too far off the pricing for a normal Lego set in a box. You know,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yes.
it's
And-
just smaller.
Steven actually made a stand for him to stand on, and the stand was about 4 to 5 times bigger than this, and it looked amazing. Would
Put it up
have
right
to
now.
have charged like $100 and some dollars
Yeah.
for it then, and it's just because it's just so expensive getting the parts sourced.
Yeah, it's a lot of small pieces, like you said.
And the
Okay.
most expensive part on this guy, he's got this watch that's a little compass,
Yeah.
which is crucial. He's got to have
Yeah,
it.
I mean, he's a traveler. You got to have a compass
And
when you're
then
traveling.
the fishing poles are not easy to get. I think we hoarded them all. We've got all the fishing poles now, and they were over $1 per fishing pole.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
so
Okay.
gnomes have got to fish. You know,
Gnomes got to fish.
Yeah.
How do they fish on their island, on their floating
they
island?
have long lines.
Very, very.
So there
long
is
line.
water underneath.
Probably they don't know.
Somewhere.
Fish keep
Yeah.
coming up. That's,
You're catching birds, actually.
yeah, birds and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, look, another fish.
Hey, I got a fish this time.
These ones
If
got
you've,
wings.
if you've ever seen a floating island, it rains still, so there's always waterfalls falling off of the floating islands. But one thing, and I'm surprised Will Arnett didn't call you guys out on this: gnomes live underground.
They do actually, right? Historically, they would. So yeah, they must be really evolved gnomes coming out from the
They're
ground.
garden
so.
gnomes.
Well, they
Yeah.
were underground, but then their piece of land floated up for some
That's
reason.
true. They got stranded up there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I'm
guess,
not didn't want to get into that. It's
Yeah.
too deep.
I guess it's
Yeah.
hard to live underground under a floating island.
Yes.
Yeah,
It'd be
exactly.
dangerous.
Yes.
You just fall right at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have this whole deep, like, Tolkien
There's
type
a mythology.
Of course.
lore with a huge history of the gnomes
it's
and the
coming.
butterflies.
It's basically Middle Earth. You know?
There's a 12-volume saga about these guys and how they.
I would read that.
The first one is called Gnome Alone,
Ah.
because there's just one, and then there's multiples.
And then the third one is Gnome Way Home.
No way home.
All right, let's move on before this podcast dies.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And then no one will watch it.
And then no one will watch it.
Oh, no, no.
Excellent. Good night, folks. The internal structure of the leaves with those huge,
Oh, yeah.
gorgeous red leaves. It looked like it went inside, like it connected to the core. Is that correct?
It didn't go all the way to the core, but it was embedded in there pretty deeply. At least 2x4 or more in there, as well as plates kind of stacking its way up. And then we would make that 3D with some headlight bricks right underneath that and more plates on the side. So it was a pretty strong chunk of plates for each branch.
How did you get it at an angle like that?
Well, when you stack plates, you immediately create a little bit of a ramp.
Okay.
And so if you do that with the right dimensions of plates, you can get a nice kind of sculpted look.
Okay, to me, it looked like it was a build that was straight and you just turned it. But you're saying you actually built it at
Yeah.
an angle. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes more sense now.
Steven usually builds his trees like that, so he was just going
Yeah.
to town
They
on the
looked
branches. Yeah.
amazing. Was
Really
there
good.
anything structurally that you were worried about? Like if you bumped it the wrong way, it would fall? Or was it all pretty solid?
It was relatively pretty solid, but I do have a really fun story for you. This is behind the scenes, deep
Definitely
cut.
haven't heard this one.
When everyone was done with their floating islands and they were ready to start getting things set up for filming the judging, which is done without the tables, just standing in front of your build, they were lifting all the bricks. The big bricks that are over the tables are like lights. They're like the size of a car, right? So they lift them all simultaneously, whoosh, and the whole ceiling shook. And all the builds on the strings, the big builds, were going boing, 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 boing. And everyone was like, "Wah!" One of our branches actually snapped and fell off, and a butterfly just on the ground. And we're like, "Did you not see that?" And the producer's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what happened?" And then I'm like, "Dude, you just moved the ceiling. All the builds were shaking, and we lost our branch." It's like, "You're going to let us put that back on?" And they're like, and I'm like, "Go get Brent, who's in charge of the challenge." And I'm like, "We're putting that back on." Because I know the rules. If it's production error and something falls, we have up to an hour to fix it. It took us less than 3 minutes to fix it, but they let us put it back on there. Bloop. After that, whenever they had to move the bricks, which was another time after that, everyone came out and held their build so it didn't shake and fall apart before judging was complete or whatever. So.
Yeah, I noticed when they had the judging, it looked like they had moved them. I was wondering, okay, how did they do that?
Yeah.
Because what is it connected to?
It's just these huge wires, like they're like this thick, right? And there's these huge, what's the term? Winch. Big winches, and it's all, they just have like a little button, and then just beep.
You're talking about the big brick lights, but
Yeah.
what are your builds? Are they hanging
Same
just
thing,
on
but it's much smaller scale.
Oh, okay.
And it's actually a wire, so it's like a 800 to 1,000 pound wire. It was very sturdy, and it was wrapped through the brick. So even if the brick broke, that wire would still hold whatever was there, as long as it held together.
Did anyone else's break or fall apart?
I think maybe one or two pieces might have fallen off of Jen and Susan's, and like no one wanted their build to shake, because if something goes wrong, your whole build falls apart, you know? So as far as I know, we were the only one to have anything substantial, and it wasn't even like our build was messed up. It was just a branch with 2 leaves and a butterfly fell off. So it wouldn't have ruined the look, but it was not what we would have wanted.
Yeah.
So thankfully, everyone built their builds very well for this challenge.
Talking about the bottom 2, I thought for sure the Utah Moms would get in the bottom 2, and I think they thought they were going to get in the bottom 2, just based on the look that they had on their face when they were calling out the bottom 2.
Yeah.
In fact, the hanging planter,
I thought it looked great.
looked good.
I thought it was pretty good.
Was it just because we were watching an edited version, and we couldn't see up close, or were they really the bottom 2, do you think?
I was looking around the room occasionally, and it was mostly at Caleb and Jacob because they have an island, and they're opposite us. And then I was also looking to my left over at Maria and Philip, and Zach and Wayne beyond them, and a little bit Dave and Richard because they were struggling at first too. So I wasn't actually paying attention to the other builds, kind of at the extremities of the room. And I didn't get to see exactly all the details, but as far as I can piece together from my memories there and watching the show, Jen and Susan had a little bit more of a 360 story, just a tiny bit. They actually did have a kind of one-sided build, but it wasn't as tucked away as Michelle and Natalie's. Their build was literally buried underneath the plant, and all the story and character was inside, and it was like you could only see it from the back, and if you're peeking in. Unlike like ours, which had these open branches, you could see everything inside. Theirs was very like in a box. Gotcha. And I think that they really got them on the story and the presentation and the design for that. Jen and Susan were also feeling the pressure in this challenge, and they had problems with the fact that you could only see the story from pretty much the one half of the build, but at least it wasn't obscured by plants as well, right?
Oh, so. I get that. I see that, but I don't think it was enough to put them in the bottom 2. I felt like that was, are you just doing that for the drama on TV?
Because they won last one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past them to have them do that, though, honestly. I don't know. So.
We've said it in our earlier podcast, it's entertainment first, competition second. So that could very well be a reason
going
why.
From top to bottom is a big switch.
Yeah, the people I've talked to, you guys, all agree that they should not have been in the bottom.
No, I think it was the other one.
Even if all the stuff you said was true, which I'm sure it is,
it was just one of the reasons that I can see, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I could totally have seen it the other way too, like you're saying.
But as far as the hip-hop artist, I totally agree with that. I don't know, unfinished looking, I felt like as big as they made it, it should have looked amazing. Because it was huge, and it wasn't even round.
Yeah.
It still looked like a block.
They struggled with the math on the sphere.
Oh my goodness.
That's what you could tell.
It was a good idea, but I was thinking if Mark and Steven had built that, that the balloon would have artistic pictures on the side of it,
There
kind of
would
like
be-
their hat had.
Exactly. That's what I
Yeah.
thought too. And it would actually be shaped like a real balloon.
Yeah,
Like
when
a
they tried to build the top and the bottom and then put it together, their math was wrong, and then
Yeah.
it made it look really janky.
Yeah, well, even like I said, even the initial design, a hot air balloon looks more like a light bulb.
Yeah.
And theirs did not look like it. It looked like a
was
a
a
rounded
ball, yeah.
square. And
Those little cubed.
yeah, so I felt like at that scale, it should have looked amazing.
Yeah.
and it didn't.
Fun story about Randall and Sarita. While we were filming off camera, which happened a lot, Randall had an injury. He actually kind of stepped on a cord and he kind of rolled his foot a little bit, and it was just enough to pull his calf muscle. So he really strained his muscle there, and he was in a boot for the rest of that
He
episode.
was in a boot at the
You
end.
saw him in the
you could see
judging.
it when the judging
Yeah.
was
Just
happening.
barely, you could see it down there, and he actually had crutches too. And they took him away, and he just stood still for judging. And they gave him back to him once the cameras were done. So for about the last third of their build, he was on a scooter or on crutches trying to build.
Wow.
So that slowed him
That
down
does
pretty
not
bad.
help.
And I almost think that was like they sent him home immediately because it was like, first of all, they were struggling with their build. Secondly, it's a mercy kill.
Yeah.
It's like Randall is injured. He would have a really rough time in the next episode
Yeah.
doing anything.
Yeah.
So it's just they were like,
They're just,
People
it-
don't
It's
realize
their
how
time to go.
dangerous Lego building is.
It's violent.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, look at his
Yeah,
head.
look at
And
this.
speaking of which, look at Mark's pinky. He broke it.
I know I was pushing down those plates too hard and just snapped. So.
Okay,
Exactly.
actually, so this is a plug for your YouTube video you have coming up. Justin
doing it next
reviewed one of the NBA basketball sets,
Which
which
is
is
awesome.
appropriate because it's
Finals
the
are
finals
happening,
right now.
yes.
We had a in-person basketball game. We've been playing on Monday nights because it's beautiful out down here
it
in
feels so
Georgia.
good.
Yeah.
And we had 4-on-4 the other night, and me, Mark, and Joe.
Uh-huh.
These guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're the dream team. We beat Grant, who's how tall?
Like six,
Six-
he's taller than you.
6'3"
and you're
or
pretty
4,
tall,
yeah.
We beat Grant and John handedly.
Yeah, oh,
Seven,
yeah.
6 games out of 7.
It was a
Um,
7-1 series win.
We
basically.
we absolutely destroyed them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and established our basketball dominance at Atlanta Brick Co.
Yes, for sure.
But in the process, Mark broke his
I was a
pinky.
good defender and I did
Right.
my job.
Yeah.
but-
He did his job,
Yeah.
and it was worth it, right?
yeah,
Definitely.
totally.
So get me into your guys' head when you were looking around. They moved all the tables away. It was very dramatic. They had each person come up. Like seeing the other builds, especially Zach and Wayne's. What was going through your heads? Did you guys feel like we are definitely safe? I don't know if we're in the top 2, but we're definitely safe. Or did you just get me into your heads?
We knew that we could be no lower than the middle of the pack. Based on what we were looking around, some people had trouble, some people had not gone as 360, not had as much volume, whatever the reason, we knew we had a really good build, even among such skilled competition. That being said, Zach and Wayne's build in particular was really good. And I was honestly very worried about Caleb and Jacob's. I've seen a
was
lot of
good.
comments online saying that, oh, they should have been in the top 2. And I'm like, I could totally have seen that happening. Their build was amazing, and the waterfalls were really good. I think what got them was it was so heavy that the waterfalls were bending a
Yeah, I
little
did
bit.
notice
And
that.
it just bothered Jamie, and that's all it takes. And so that's probably why they weren't in the top 2. But I totally could have seen them, and I totally could have seen Zach and Wayne. They ended up in the top 2.
Yeah.
And so we were like, we thought we were going to do well. If we didn't get top 2, oh well. We did a good build we were happy with. We were hopeful though. I was like 50-50, top 2, 50-50, we win it. And then Steven was like, "Oh yeah, we got this." Yeah, he was like so confident. I've never seen him that. It was a very
Really?
switch of personality. As soon as we started building
Yeah.
Floating Island, Steven was like, "Yeah, we got this."
This
bro.
is mine.
And-
We're winning.
Yeah, and when that little who's copying who fun
my
banter,
goodness.
Steven was like, 4 eyes, you little shrimps, we're gonna beat you up. And I'm like, Steven, you can't say that on the live TV. Thankfully, they cut it all out. But he was just like,
Oh, boy.
he was.
Did Will Arnett have to calm him down? Whoa, whoa,
No,
whoa.
he was inciting it. He was actively
He
inciting
was like,
it.
ooh, drama? Yes.
About an hour into the build, Steven says, "Oh man, Caleb and Jacob are making us floating island." I look over and I'm like, "Yeah, that's not an upside down volcano." At the same time, they were looking at us, and we're just kind of like. So I walk over there and I'm like, "Hey, how you guys doing?" He's like, "Doing good." I'm like, "You building a floating island, huh?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Yeah, you see, we're." And he's like, "Yeah, you're building a floating island." Obviously, there's not enough time to restart. And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "So why don't we build 2 very different floating islands?" He's like, "Great." I'm like, "I see you're working with blue. You want to do some waterfalls?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, we won't do any waterfalls. You're not going to make any trees. And he's like, okay, deal. Good deal. And so they heard that and then sent Will over there. And then he was immediately grilling them with questions leading to talking about it. And that's when he immediately called Jacob to call us out about copying them. Because we had both noticed, oh gosh, we're building the same thing. And we had already agreed how to make it different. However, the core structure is the same concept. Even if it's very different ways of going about it. They also had a Technic structure, but their build was more like a solid a cone, as it were.
They focused really heavily on that one large building, which was kind of plain. I mean, it was impressive.
It
It looked
square.
nice.
It had motion, which is nice.
Yeah, but it was kind of plain, and you guys had more embedded stuff and very impressive, smaller things. I thought
Steven
that
went
was
with
really cool.
round houses, which is very
Yeah.
unusual, and they were very detailed and colorful. So it's like Steven's houses were a little bit more Amy, and so it ended up working to our advantage.
Oh man, yeah.
I want to ask about Chris playing with that brick. He just keeps messing with it.
Oh, the chrome.
Yeah, you were putting it with the gnomes.
We should make those and sell those.
It's
That's
fidget thing. Yeah, we should make chrome Lego bricks and sell them. We have had metal ones before, and we sold them, and now I don't think you can buy them anymore.
No, they were cool though.
Yeah.
Why don't we do our own golden brick?
Chroming is something they do in Europe, and the
It's
United
expensive.
States has never become good at chroming, from what I understand. So if you look at anything, guns, we nickel plate them in the United States, or we used to, and Europe used to chrome them. People who I know do chrome custom minifigures. Guess where they get them chromed?
Europe.
In Europe. And I've seen people sell the chrome Bionicle parts at Brick Fair, Virginia, where it was a guy who was doing them on his own. And they were good, but they just weren't great. You know, that you could see, it was like a paint, you know, you could see brush strokes and stuff in them. But, so, anyhow, that's why we don't chrome Lego.
Those Europeans, they got chrome and they got nuclear energy. Well, we got to catch up.
I know. It's that we're so behind over here. All we got is burgers and fast food.
That's right.
Yeah.
Walmart. And
In fact, we're talking about the Mark Stevenson meal at McDonald's.
Yeah, that would be hilarious. Oh my god.
Yeah, it'd be kind of like the BTS meal, but different.
yeah, it'd probably be like 3 hamburgers and large fries.
It would
and
be
a special
so much
sauce.
food.
I'd be in the bathroom for a week after eating that.
So let's talk about Zach and Wayne's build real quick. I thought it was amazing, and for TV's sake,
Yeah.
it looked the best, I thought, because yours was, we couldn't see the detail on yours. They didn't show it to us, which is why our opinions are so screwed, I think, on like the Utah Moms versus the plant one. Their build was huge.
Yes.
And it was awesome. Again, it stood out. It was really the only sculpture, in my opinion. I thought that's what they wanted. They wanted big.
They didn't mention it. They said,
It was
and
one of the
if you
things-
go big, that'll be like extra. We'll be like looking
Yeah,
at that
they
one.
specifically
They
said
didn't
that.
say it has to be big though, which y'all obviously didn't go big, and a lot of people tried to go like big-ish, but no one was close to Zach and Wayne's,
No.
and that's why they were in the top 2. It was just massive.
It wasn't as detailed for
But it
sure.
was massive.
But for
Yeah.
TV's sake, I mean, it's from what we could see,
Yeah,
it was awesome
The-
because
the whale
it was
was a
made
little
for
blocky.
TV.
Yeah.
but
You
the
know what I mean?
squid wrapping around the well, it really looked good.
Looking at that, did you feel like they were your best competition for top?
In
billing?
my mind, yes.
Okay.
At the same time, I totally could have seen both floating islands if for whatever reason they didn't think there was enough detail. But they did actually put quite a bit of detail on before time ran out. At first, it seemed very skeletal.
Yeah.
But then they just slowly filled in all the gaps. They added the squid for some color because they were getting some
Yeah.
criticism that it's just a big gray whale.
Yeah, that didn't
make
look
it. And the squid really set it off. It's all very simple techniques, but it just works.
And
you know,
it's
it's
huge,
big,
so,
it's well sculpted. So yeah.
Were you freaking out a little bit when y'all were the top 2 again? Were you like, oh, they're
We
gonna
were
beat
like,
us again?
well, we were just happy to get top 2 again because we hadn't even had any recognition like that since the first episode. We were like, oh, Zach can win again. I'm like, maybe I knew at that point it was like either way, whichever way it happens. It was very close in my mind. Is it going to be volume and sculpture, or is it going to be detail and technique and skill? Because it's like we could do that too, but we decided to go for something that's, you know, basically very few of the other teams could actually build that level of detail in that short of time. So which one is it going to be? There's 2 ways, and actually 2 things that they were asking for. Very 360, and then very big. They picked ours, and in my mind, it's because they didn't want to do Zack and Wayne twice with the golden brick.
It's very.
I was going to ask
I could
that.
totally see why that was the tipping point, in my mind. So yeah.
That
Okay.
could also be why they picked Zack and Wayne over like the other floating island. If they were like, oh, we don't know which one's better, because it makes for good TV. Because y'all have already been the top 2, and they beat you guys, and now y'all beat them.
Yeah.
So
It kind of sets y'all apart.
And
It's
their
shifting.
floating island, I thought, at least some of the angles they showed, I felt like what you mentioned before, it was not as 3D. The back
Yeah.
of the waterfall did
That's
not
it.
look as good.
Yeah.
You said the nest was only on one side. You
Yeah.
didn't get the story completely. You had
Yeah.
to be standing in certain ways. They didn't show this, but you said Jamie mentioned how the waterfalls were
You can
bending
kind of
inward.
tell, and it looked a
And
little weird.
it messed up the
Yeah.
the concept
Yeah.
that water was flowing downward.
I'm amazed it was even holding together, but it was bending
Yeah.
because it was holding together, and that's just how the cookie crumbles.
So you guys got the golden brick.
yeah, don't
That
waste
is
it.
awesome. Do we want to talk about next episode?
Yeah,
Are
I
you
am
guys ready?
so
There were some-
pumped for this
Man,
one. Oh my
monster
goodness.
trucks.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it looks like there's 2 parts to it. They stop you halfway. I know you can't talk about it, but it looks like there's 2 things. They have to build the Lamborghini from memory, and then they have to have the demolition derby.
Oh, is that what they said?
There were 2. It looks like
I
2
missed that.
challenges in one.
So in season 1, the car challenge was 2 challenges in one. Remember they did the racing down the racetrack, and that was only like 15 minutes, and then whoever won that got an advantage.
That's right. They got like 10 minutes extra or
During
something.
the other
So you
part.
got 30 minutes
challenge
extra.
with the Lamborghini.
They brought out that Technic
Oh my
Lamborghini
goodness,
Scion.
it's so beautiful. It looks so
And
good.
Giant one.
they
It's
had shots of like a life size. Was it
yeah,
life
yeah,
size?
No, that's
Yeah.
a thing. I saw a
Yeah,
video
we've
about
seen
them
that.
designing.
Look at
it.
Lego's
It's so
social
good.
media pages, and they have a video featuring their life-size Lamborghini.
It looks even better than the Chiron they did a while back. It doesn't run, but I think it looks way better. It's so
Wow.
sleek.
We're in Atlanta, and Porsche's headquarters is in Atlanta.
Mhm.
And up at their headquarters, they had a Porsche 911, which was the real car was half of it. They took one and they cut it in half. Half of it was a real Porsche. The other half was Lego.
Oh my
Really?
And they had that up at their headquarters.
That is
up
so
there, yeah.
cool.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
I never
Okay.
actually saw it. We had customers that would come in that worked up at Porsche.
Oh, okay.
Guess what
So
they always
cool.
drove to the store?
Audis.
Lamborghini.
No, Porsches.
Duh.
So that's our guess, is that there's that first shorter challenge
Yeah.
where they have to rebuild it, and then it looks like they're building Lego over a like RC car.
Yeah, it's a demolition.
smashing it
derby.
into
I mean,
each
you
other.
want it tough, you want it to look tough, and you want it to be tough and smash everyone else.
My only concern is that in the preview they were going kind of slow, and all Lego remote control cars
Are
kind of
so
go
slow.
slow.
I hope they gave them something that's
So-
a little extra power.
Yeah, we'll
'Cause,
see.
Yeah,
We'll
that
see.
would make it a little more
But-
exciting.
It looks like so much fun.
Oh my goodness!
Oh
And I
my
know
gosh.
you're competitive. You and Steven are competitive, and it's gonna get hilarious. Because I'm sure a lot of the other contestants. I mean, you can tell the other twins are very competitive too. So it's gonna get exciting.
And then if you've got to control your own car, I mean that's something totally separate from Lego.
Yeah, you just gotta
You know.
be quick.
Oh, I didn't think of that. Like, so
Yeah,
your skill
you're-
at
you're
driving
driving
an RC
it
car
Yeah.
into the other cars.
has to. Oh, okay. All right.
I'm very excited for this one.
Yeah, but it's not next week, right?
No,
They're skipping
I think
a week.
it's 2 weeks.
It's another delay.
Just 1 week or 2.
1 week as far as I know.
Okay, so no.
Not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday.
Speaking of that, and I hope that Fox takes this into consideration someday, is that I was thinking I would like to see a 2-hour, 3-hour long episode uncut. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
just-
kind of like the Snyder cut. And
Put it
where
on Hulu.
we get to see, put it on Hulu. Or follow up the season with it.
Yeah.
Come out with the
bonus
uncut
thing.
editor's cut or whatever.
Yeah.
Where the episodes are longer and we get to see more of the builds, because like your build last night, we just didn't see
We
it
didn't get a lot.
enough.
It looked amazing, but we didn't get like those close up, the details or anything on
Yeah.
it, which won it for you. But we couldn't see them that well. Like they showed the gnomes, they showed the butterflies, but they
and
didn't.
then
zoom in.
just what you were talking about with the bricks moving and maybe them describing the rules more.
Yeah.
More of the building and.
I'm honestly
I mean,
surprised they cut out the boot where he got injured,
Yeah.
that would have been great drama for TV.
Yeah.
But maybe
Because
because
they
he
went
got
out.
eliminated, they
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
want to show it, so
Yeah.
it made it look like you said, it was a mercy kill. and
Yeah.
they didn't want to make it look like that.
Yeah, there's a multitude of reasons of why they wouldn't want to show all that stuff. So it's the story they want to present.
Well, we were saying that last time, the Arnett cut.
Yes,
Yes.
Arnett cut.
It's
I
just
like
2
it.
hours of dad jokes.
Oh my goodness. I'd watch that. Chris would enjoy that.
They actually cut out one of my favorite moments of the show. I'll give you one last little story.
Okay.
While us and the twins were arguing for like 10 minutes, Philip and Maria were super exasperated with us because they were in the middle of their interview with Jamie and Amy, and they could not even hear each other from this far apart because we're yelling at each other. And so then Philip finally says, "Hey guys, can you just please shut up? We're trying to have an interview here." And then Will says, "Stay out of it, Philip." And he says, "Keep fighting." It's so funny. And everyone just died
my
laughing
goodness.
at that point. And then, so from then on, whenever Philip would say a dad joke, we'd just say, "Stay out of it, Philip." So
That's
funny. It was
amazing.
so funny. And actually, I say it later. I think it's the next. Anyway, I say it later in the episode, and I bring that up. But it won't make any sense now because they didn't actually show that part. But yeah.
I did notice, I don't know what you said that reminded me of it. They intercut some earlier interviews because you're still wearing your pastel Hawaiian button-up shirt that we've all seen you wear so many times. But then when the actual episode, you were wearing, I think, one of your own shirts,
Yeah,
right?
I recognize that. You
or is it
definitely
just
worn that
very
before.
similar?
The
The
It was
green
blue and green.
flannel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That for episode 5, yes, that was totally one of my favorite
That's
shirts, and
why
that
you
was
won.
one of the
That's
few
it.
times actually let me wear my own clothes, and Steven too.
You
That
don't
was
have
one of
enough
Steven's.
style. Yeah.
Yeah, they thought we looked boring, so they
You
ended
do.
up changing it up drastically in the next episode. You'll
That's
see.
Your,
amazing.
your pastels were, oh, this was boring, so what you wear next time. Okay.
Yeah.
They get me in those weird looking shirts, Hawaiian looking stuff. Oh boy.
That's,
You look
I
great,
wonder-
Mark. You look
Because
great.
you were saying they didn't want you in flannel because the twins wear flannel. So I'm curious why the decision was made for this episode to wear
It was
it's okay.
It was a color scheme choice because if you look around the room, Jen and Susan are wearing green. Other teams are wearing kind of a blue, and so I was kind of mixing in with the color scheme for the entire ensemble that episode. Steven was wearing blue, so it's like it wasn't necessarily he's wearing flannel too. It was a much broader. It wasn't so thin lines, so it was different enough. And it was the right color for that episode. That being said, they quickly turned the tables on me and Steven in the next episode, outfit-wise. So it's like
I can't
such
wait.
a radical shift.
I have to watch the preview again to see what they're wearing. All right, do we want to do a prediction? I think, for me, we're getting down to we're at the more experienced builders at this point.
It's getting serious.
Yes. There's still maybe one or two. It's like,
Utah Moms.
yeah, that maybe they don't have the technical skills,
Yeah,
that they
and
may
that's-
be artistic people.
They are,
But they don't have the technical skills to get all these crazy things that they're now being thrown at them.
Like
If you asked them to build a
demolition
nice
derby
set,
car.
they could probably do it no problem. But now we're getting into
Build
crazy
a
things.
demolition derby car.
Yeah.
That's different. Really
So,
different.
but do we want to make a prediction about who we think may not last this next episode? You're saying Utah Moms, probably?
Especially with this kind of challenge, I think this is more not in a weird way, but this is more of a guy thing. Cars. It's a lot of guys love cars
and destroying them.
destroying the cars.
Yeah.
So I feel like they'll. I mean, I'm sure they have kids, so it might help them. They'll be like, hey, my son would do this and destroy this, but they could just not really get it to look great. I'm sure that has something to do with it. It's got to look good. It's got to be strong too, which is part of the technical side.
Yeah.
If it's not tough, it's gonna get destroyed easily.
Yeah.
So
And I wonder if that is part of the
I bet
challenge,
it
like
is.
how well your car holds
how
up
well it holds up. I'm
at
sure
the
that
end.
is.
Don't make any. Is that brown steel? What was that? That's a good point. And the DIY ladies are used to tearing stuff down
They
to
might
rebuild
be
it.
fine,
So
yeah.
we'll see if that translates to Lego. Who else? Anything else? So you're saying Utah Moms. Do you want to make a prediction?
I'm with Joe.
Yeah.
Only based on this last episode, actually, because their tower turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
They made it towards the end.
Yeah, I think theirs made it to level
And they've
10 or
actually
something.
some other
11,
builds
oh,
that
they
they
were
had looked good. I remember.
Yeah, they have good
Um,
technique and artistry.
I think, like you said, it's really competitive now, and going into such a different challenge could
They might
be
get it,
could
yeah.
be anybody really.
Yeah.
I mean, it could even Mark. Well, I guess they have the brick, but if they don't play the brick and they're in the bottom two, they could get kicked off.
Which
Yeah.
is, unfortunate. And if you do that, I might have to fire you.
Yep.
That'd be bad.
The husband and wife might be contender for the
Yeah,
bottom
that's
as
true.
well. I felt like they made those two fairy people on their build for this episode.
No.
And
Was
wasn't that
that was
them?
their brother and sister.
That was brother and sister.
oh, the brother and
those are
sister.
brother and sister.
That's right.
Oh.
died.
I was confused who built what, but the brother and sister made the fairy thing, right, with the rainbow.
Yes.
Going back to my Jay-Z rap comparison, when you see someone do something well and you do that thing, you realize, oh, how good they are. Because they made theirs 3 times, 5 times the size of
Probably,
this guy.
yeah.
And it didn't even have this much personality or detail.
No, you're right.
It was so flat and plain, and you could barely tell what it
Kind of
was.
square.
And then you see this. It's like, well, that's a fifth of the size.
And it's better.
So to me, that alone tells you the level of technicality, the difference.
Yeah.
Not to get your head inflated, but the difference of
Big enough.
ability between those two. So I think possibly the sister, brother, and possibly the husband, wife
Yeah.
could be along with Utah
Yeah.
moms, depending on whatever the rules are. Maybe it's
Yeah.
structure,
I
maybe
mean,
it's...
It might be something we'll see and be like, oh no, they'll be really good at
Yeah.
it. We just don't know the aspects of
Yeah.
the challenge. So
One of Steven's favorite things is cars, right?
Yep. Steven
yeah,
is.
he talks about cars
I'm into
all the
cars
time.
mildly, and Steven is very into cars.
Yeah, he's
Steven is very into cars.
So
I
it
didn't
might-
know that.
Yeah.
He saw
He's a
my
motorhead.
car.
Him and his
Yes,
friends
he is.
actually,
Really?
yeah, they talk
Yeah.
about how many
Oh, yeah.
horsepowers and stuff like
So
that.
this should be a very, very interesting episode.
Okay.
With
Yeah.
that said,
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big gearhead.
Yeah,
So he's into history and cars. So
Yeah.
and
interest-
watches.
We have many interests.
They're
just-
they're
it
more
seems-
interesting than they look, actually.
We're
I
pretty
mean, just
basic,
wait
but
till
we
the
like a
shirts
lot of
next
things.
year.
Yeah. All right, so we'll have to wait again another 2 weeks
Which is annoying.
before we get to see it. But we will be here to pundentrate. Is that a word?
Sure, it is
It
now.
is now
a word.
to talk about it. Of course, we won't stop the podcast. We've got another one coming out lined up. Like,
We're gonna do a discount code.
Oh, okay. Do it. Hit us with it.
It'll be $5 off, $25 or more. The code will be this episode, which we're talking about. S2E5 will be
Okay.
the code.
All right.
S2E5.
Oh, I get it.
Season 2, episode 5. S2E5. Yeah.
So how do they email it? How do they use
Oh, they
the
could
code?
just tell us at the register. They could tell us over the phone, or if you input it when you order it on the interweb,
Yes.
which is www.atlbrick.com. You just put in the promo code at the end, and it'll take the $5 off as long as you spend $25 or more.
Just have to make
$25
sure
or
you're
more,
over the-
$5 off.
Also, they can get free trading cards with, of Mark's signature, Joe's,
Or
or myself,
mine.
or
Mine's better than
Justin's,
his.
and
Which is okay.
all they have to do is type in the promo code free card. But
Okay.
I think you can only do one promo code at a time.
Yeah. You
Oh,
can.
you have to choose. Do you want
Yeah.
$5 off or a free card?
Well, you just make 2 orders.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So at the register, online, or over the phone,
Any
we'll
of
accept
those,
it
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
Thank you for winning for once.
Oh yeah,
It's about time.
trying.
So I can't wait to see what happens next. This
yeah.
one looks really exciting.
Very
It's
exciting.
insane.
Don't forget, we are available as a audio format if you'd like to just listen to us. And don't forget to leave us a comment. What did you think? Did you agree with us? Did you think those two should be in the bottom 2? Should he really have gotten the golden brick? Are we hyping it up too much? Come on.
Yes.
I'd love to hear what you guys think. If you're subscribed, thank you very much. If you're not subscribed, why don't you do that? And leave us a comment. Thank you so much.
Yeah, like I was saying, Justin, before we went to go get coffee. Like,
Are you what? Nice.